Ladies and gentlemen, big terror news.
Hey, Karakoto fan, no, welcome back to another edition of Big Hero News. Hey, Chewy, how are you? Sorry, I'm in fast forward mode.
Kia ora,
Back to normal speed. I was 2x speed there for a second.
What's up, Pat? I'm good. It's suspiciously warm here in Dunedin.
What?
And,
Can't hear you.
Oh, it's going to be one of those nights.
I'm just trying to write down what I wanted to talk about at the start of the show. I know what it was.
Yes.
I'll just
So
say
usually...
I'll say
Chat,
NNB.
just-
I want to talk about NNB. You know what it is because I sent it to you. NNB. Does anyone in the chat know what I'm talking about? NNB. Sorry, Chewy. Here you go. I'm a bit drunk.
No, it's fine. It's your show. You carry on.
It's not my show. It's our show. It's the show for the people. We entered the radio awards, the podcast awards, and it was quite nice being able to say this. We are truly the only independent entry this year because we are currently only funded by patrons. It's quite nice to say that, actually. You know, if we could triple the numbers, it'd be even better because then we could actually not worry about advertisers ever. But at the moment, we are genuinely probably the only truly independent podcast going in there against all those mainstream media twats. Oh, look at that.
And look, you know what that means, Pat,
What?
in chat. That means that we're going to be obnoxious about sharing the fact that you should go and vote for us.
I think that starts tomorrow, actually, the voter choice. I've got Sam Cedar coming
So
on, dude.
brace yourself. Just prepare. We're going to get obnoxious.
Sam Cedar from the Majority Report said he will come and have a chat with us. I've messaged a few of the I got some semi-contacts in that world. I've done podcasts with a few of them before. So Sam Cedar from the Majority Report is going to come and have a chat with us, possibly Friday, 10 a.m. New Zealand time, which means if that does, I've seen, I want to see if we can do it 24 hours earlier, then we can use it tomorrow night. But if not, I might put up a Friday special because public holiday Monday, and it just feels weird recording something about the US election, which is 2.5 weeks away, and then recording it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and putting it up 4 days later. It just doesn't seem to be a smart idea. So stay tuned. This time tomorrow night, we might be playing some of Sam. I've had Sam on a couple of podcasts before. We may have him tomorrow night, but if not tomorrow night, probably what I'll do is a little short special on Friday night, which will be fully pre-recorded. Or maybe I should do it. Oh no, I was gonna say maybe I should do it Monday night because we're not here. But that's then 3 days after I've recorded in a fast-moving election. So there's a little bit of breaking news for you. Sam's coming on. Well, we always say this. This is in radio. You have the saying that you never announce anything because then it doesn't happen. So, for example, Eru Kapakingi, who is part of the Hikui about the treaty referendum, he's crook this week. So I said he'll be coming on Thursday night. Yeah, next week because he's crook. So that's fine. That's the danger of when you tell people what's happening. He's coming. He's coming. Look at this. There's a bunch of people saying Sam's the GOAT. Really? I think he's the greatest of all time. Might have to play this to Sam, see what happens. I would like to share something small that happened to me today, or kind of happened to all of us today in a strange little way. Just have a look. There's no sound to this. Have a look what this is my lounge, which is just like, it's about 4 meters behind the camera. And look what's sitting in the lounge about 4 meters behind the camera, not the dog. There's a big commercial press there. There is a cutter, commercial cutter, and there is a digital printer.
What you can't see is the migrant workers that we have bonded to use the equipment. And we think that with ACT and power that we are justified in doing this.
It's actually, bro, what you're talking about. We're going to have a look at the protests today. Protests? Would you call them protests? They probably were because they were calling them hui's. I wonder if that was like a there was a reason they were calling them hui's and not
I
projects.
know what that reason is. It's
do you?
very clever.
Okay,
It's
tell me.
very, very clever. Do you want me to tell you now?
Yeah.
So they were a meeting. They were a union meeting. They had motions that they wanted to carry, and because it was a meeting and an official union meeting, it meant that the union members that attended, it was paid. So yeah, I thought that was quite clever.
You made some kind of comment just there. I'm sorry, I'm queuing up things at the same time I'm talking to you because I was running late today. They had quite an interesting conversation on the working group's a really good episode. You should go and check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. Especially, as I said last night, when Damien Grant tries to educate Craig Rennie on tax. That was fucking hilarious. But there was another part of it which starts at 15 minutes and 35 seconds. So I'll go and try and queue it up at 15:35. 16, 15. Oh my gosh. Where they were basically talking about what is a union. And is the union any good? And what good is the union? And it's just fascinating to watch Damien Grant really not get it. Like libertarians, they live in this world that honestly, if they worked like they say, would make sense. Because libertarians go, well, if you're not happy with the job, get another job. If you're not happy with it, and so market forces should drive the wages. If that company is treating you badly, just go and get another job with a different company. What they don't realize is that's not how the world works. You can't just walk out of one job and go, oh, sweet, I'll go get another job and I'll get paid more. It's not how the world works. If the world did work like that, then, their perspective would have some validity, but it's not. So we'll have a look at that tonight. It's really interesting. It's not the first time we've said this, but it's really interesting just to see Damien Grant not get it, because he seems to his vision on the world, and I'm going to say it's authentic. I'm not suggesting he is putting it on or anything, but his vision on the world is this kind of Shangri-La where you can walk into a job. Look, just market forces. If you don't like it there, go get a better paying job. Like at no point, and he asked this question about, is it indentured service? Are they basically slaves? No. Well, then there's no problem. But he doesn't go, it's not the difference between getting another job. It's the difference between not having a marketplace at the moment to get jobs. And so it's a difference between the job you have and maybe a benefit. And then you've got the force coming in to keep you in a job with bad wages or bad conditions or bad whatever. So anyway, sorry, I've been talking a lot, Trey, but I've got one more thing to show. You ready? N and B.
Yeah.
Did anyone in the chat get it? N and B? N and B. You ready, Fano? Here we go.
So good.
Oh, so good. And actually, this is a it's invisible in the background. So actually, when we do this on t-shirts and stickers and stuff, it'll be cut all around the outside like that. So there you go. Nikki No Boats is complete. We all give a round of applause to Emily. And that will be, yep, I can see you, baby birds. Love it. People are saying, want one. People are saying, yep. So now it's about me learning the printing system, which might take a little while. But that's what I'll get onto. I'll get onto it. It's pretty bloody cool. Before we go on, Chewy, I might just say, because we have mentioned it a few times, if you do like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. All the details are there. Our podcast award entry is there. We've got early interviews and stuff there. I was going to say I should have put Nikki No Votes up there early. Sorry, patrons, I didn't do that, but it didn't cross my mind. You should have got first look at it, but yeah, it didn't cross my mind. But there you go. Yeah, so Nikki, and we've got some ideas for maybe some more bits and pieces. I was thinking about, Little Rascals from like the 1960s and then the original from the 1930s. That I thought maybe Little Simeon and that font with Simeon with a lollipop. That could be another T-shirt, And I thought Cigaretti. That's been mentioned a few times in the thing. Cigaretti could be another one. A bit of an imagery around Shane Retti as a cigarette or something. Just thinking. But I'm keen to actually just do caricatures of not just people who, we want to see negative things happen to as well. So we'll keep going. My phone's beeping at me. Where's my phone, Chewy? Oh, it's up there. Hang on.
Yes, I just yeeted mine across the room. So, you might need to do the same.
No, I'll just... There you go. Silent. I could just hear it going. because that's it telling me that people are on my cameras right now. And the people on my cameras are me because I've got a camera in my studio, security camera. I do that so I tell the kids all the alcohol behind there. There's a camera going at all times. Like, so when I'm away, you know, I can see. Always watching. I've lost my train of thought already. What are we doing? Where are we? What's this all about? Oh, I sent you that one. That's pretty cool, eh? Oh gosh. Speaking of imagery, I saw there was a whole bunch of new Trump ones going around the internet today. I bookmarked them.
Yeah.
I'll go and grab it. It's just been a godsend. The internet gods have provided.
It's a terrible time for democracy, but a fantastic time for memery.
Did you hear that there was something like a salmonella or a Legionnaires or something like that outbreak in the McDonald's? Funny how that happened like the day after Donald Trump had been doing work there. Where is this one gone? Gosh, people that post 40 times a day. Right, here's a story for you, just for a bit of memeing. This is for reals, from a guy called, I don't know who this is, it's just come across my feed, Mike Singleton, who is senior executive at NBC Universal, retired. The McDonald's Trump worked at had been getting so many fake reviews on Yelp, had been stopped. New comments from being added. Here are a few. Customer service was a joke. Senile old man got bronzer on my fries. Didn't wear gloves. Repeated himself several times. Something about Ronald McDonald in the showers at the golf club. The person who was at the drive-thru vaguely resembled someone who I saw on the news for being a convicted felon. That's a review left on there. Another one, free lies with every shake. You don't want to, you just don't want to see who's shaking. I asked for an Arnold Palmer. Old man told me I couldn't handle it. Another one, the fries were too salty, as if someone who'd lost a major election had been crying all over them for an hour. And last one, before I got shut down, the person who was at the drive-thru vaguely resembled someone who I saw in the news for being a convicted felon. Pretty funny. Pretty funny.
I saw something, and this should be like, in a rational world where things make sense, this should be career ending, shall we say? Trump says, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had.
Did he actually say that? Holy crap.
Yeah. On a panel show.
God.
Just unhinged for a whole bunch of reasons, but just fucking hell.
No. Well, we're talking about the Orange Idiot, so maybe we'll stay here because some of the coverage for tonight, I wanted to have a look at some things that have been happening in America. It's just fascinating when you see Donald Trump, the people around him, the people that want to be involved with him, you know, the celebrity voices that are around him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you see Barack Obama, who is one of the coolest men on the face of the planet. And he has Eminem introducing him. Something like this.
Detroit!
Detroit!
What up, though? So look, I wrote down a few things I wanted to say. I love you too. Thank you. I'm here tonight for a couple of important reasons. As most of you know, the city of Detroit and the whole state of Michigan mean a lot to me. And going into this election, the spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important to use your voice. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, please.
Please.
I also think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known. I think Vice President Harris supports a future for this country where these freedoms and many others will be protected.
I mean, this is Eminem, who wrote a track about putting his girlfriend in the boot of the car and driving it off a cliff.
And here to tell you,
You know?
much
No,
more
that
about
was Slim Shady. That's a different guy.
Sure.
President Barack Obama.
That'll get us taken off that little bit of music, so I'll just talk over it a little bit.
You know, I have done a lot of rallies, so I don't usually get nervous. But I was feeling some kind of way following Eminem. And I noticed my palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, vomit on my sweater already, mom's spaghetti. I'm nervous, but on the surface I look calm and ready to drop bombs, but I keep on forgetting.
I don't remember who it was, but we recently had a New Zealand politician quote Eminem. Do you remember that? And it was just shocking. I think Obama does it with style. And good to still see, though, that, you know, people are still calling him a war criminal. I guess it's just commentary on, and it's like when you think, when you look back wistfully to the Rhodes Scholar that was fucking George W. Bush, when your example is now Donald Trump.
I was talking about that at dinner tonight. Yeah, simpler times.
Yeah. I've got another clip to play, but
killed like 1.3 million Iraqis or whatever. Yeah. But you know, simpler times.
I've got something else. I mean, there's so much going on in America. We could do this the whole show every single night. But yeah, really, really interesting, funny, and actually a very good point made from Tim Walz today when he starts talking about Donald Trump's running mate.
But look, I'm not going to waste all the time I'm in. I'm going to talk about his running mate.
Get him. Get him.
His running mate, Elon Musk.
That's really
where
good.
Is Senator Vance, after he got asked the simplest question in the world at the debate, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? And after 2 weeks, he finally said, no, he didn't. That's where he's been spending his time. But that's it. So, look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it.
It's good. It's good messaging, delivered well.
Think about it. Think about that. That guy is literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. Now look, they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because Donald Trump has already promised that he would put Elon in charge of government regulations that oversee the businesses that Elon runs. That's a hell of a buy. He could spend billions to make more than 10 billion on the back end. So in other words, Donald Trump, in front of the eyes of the American public, is promising corruption. That's what he's promising you. And you know what? I don't believe he keeps many promises, but he'll keep that one. I'll guarantee you he'll keep that one.
It's good, man. It's good. It's good messaging, delivered well. I think I've showed before. I think we've all seen when he was talking to his daughter about eating turkey at the state fair. You know, he's good, but the messaging is strong. That's a strong message. And now with Elon Musk giving out $1 million a day to people who register to vote and sign his basically loyalty oath, there's questions coming up around, is he allowed to do that? Is he breaking a law? So you've got these people who are literally looking to buy this election. And it's so weird to say this, Chewy. I mean, there are people who are saying it's over for Trump. Like there are some pretty senior academics and, you know, pollsters and commentators and journalists saying the polling's, I'll believe it when I see it. It still feels margin of error and knife edge to me. Sir, thoughts?
Yeah. I have been hurt before.
Yeah.
It is an indictment on the US that it's as close as it is.
100%.
You know, like there's lots of comments like when we talked about Obama, people rightly bringing up the fact that his reputation hangs on the fact that he's authorized more illegal drone strikes than anybody before or since, and that is true. It's the duality of someone in that position, though. He was an incredibly influential leader. His African American president. You know, you can't get, like, as I said in the chat after that, find me a US president that hasn't done some really sketchy international war crimesy shit. I don't know how far you have to go back but they're all corrupted. Their system is corrupted. The Americans haven't come up with a system yet that they can't fuck up beyond all recognition.
Yeah.
And we are just looking at the circus that is their presidential election, and people are still going, well, I don't know who to vote for. It's 50-50. A senile old rapist that everybody laughs at, that is rapidly deteriorating. Look, I urge anyone, like Trump has always said bananas shit, but you go back and watch him in his last run, he is 80% more coherent than he is now. He is a random word generator at this point.
Yeah.
And people are still going, well, you know, I like him. You know, do you like any of his policies? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He hates the people that I hate.
He does as well. You're talking about the first African American president. He does represent, you know, I mean, like, because Obama can always have that on the CV, right? He is a glass ceiling breaker, but so is Donald Trump on some level, because he is like the very first Oompa Loompa president. So,
God,
you know,
I was wondering where you were going with that. I thought you were going to say that. Like I find it sketchy when some people go, well, actually, the first African American president was Clinton.
Yeah, because
I've heard that said before. I'm like, that's kind of fucked. Yeah, like, I just don't know how to call it. Like, this shouldn't be close. No. Like, by any reasonable standard. But this is the trap that we have here. When you start talking about an American election, you're coming at it from a point of rationality and things that should make sense. But then you've forgotten that we're talking about a US election where nothing fucking makes sense. The Electoral College is fucked.
Yeah.
You know, even down to the fact that the Electoral College works at, like, it's pretty much the wording that the delegates have to vote for the popular vote in the way of their state, but they don't have to. They can just do whatever they want. You know, and we're guaranteed to look down at months and months of litigation and fucking calls for recounts. And that's if we're not looking at some sort of armed insurrection at the other end of the scale. It is going to be a shit show. And all of us want something like what we're used to here, where you tune in a day, you watch the votes come in, you get your answer, job done. Tie a bow on it, happy, sad, away we go. I still fear that this is an election that could break America.
Yeah.
Are we at that point yet? It feels like we're watching the fall of Rome.
Yeah. Well, you know, every great kind of empire eventually falls. Maybe it's the beginning of the end for America and their empire status.
And the rest of the world is just hoping that when you fold and break apart, that you don't just take the rest of us with you. Mm. So yeah, this is one of those times that I'm really, really glad we're a tiny little island on the butt cheek of the world. That we're tucked away down here. I wouldn't want to be Canada.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be fucking Mexico.
Yeah. There's one other thing, the American election, that I thought I'd mention today as well. And that is Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people ever. Apparently, Donald Trump will be sitting down with Joe Rogan. After backing out of several major interviews in the last minute, Donald Trump has one last major appearance on the horizon, the Joe Rogan Experience. The Republican presidential nominee will be meeting with the former Fear Factor host on Friday, reported Politico. It will be the first time that Trump has appeared on Rogan's podcast. This will be interesting because, you know, Rogan... If you want to see what Rogan does, see him talking to libertarians and stuff. Like, it might have even been Dave Rubin. And Dave Rubin going, oh, the government can't do anything well. And Rogan goes, oh, post office is a pretty good system. Oh, yeah, but if it was done in the private sector, it would be much better. And he was like, well, he collects chickens or he gets chickens. And he's like, only the post. So he used examples that actually to say how the public service can do things better than the private service. So I wonder what Joe Rogan he'll sit down with. Will he sit down with the fawning, you know, person going further right every single day Or will he actually be that guy who, back when we all listened, and I know lots of you listened way back in the day, he did actually seem to be inquisitive with his questioning. It's all changed now, but back a decade ago, that really seemed to be what it was, like an open door to any conversation, general inquisitiveness. Whereas now, especially since the pandemic and that, it seems to be, you know, trans taking over the world and Dr. Fauci was a murderer. That seems to be his vibe today. So it'll be interesting to see who turns up. I guess the other thing is, I don't think there is such a thing as a friendly space for Donald Trump because he's so addled. So even going into a friendly space, he often puts his foot in it, looks like a goose. So probably whatever comes out of Joe Rogan, they'll be able to, it won't be good for the president, even if Rogan's not trying to do it that way, because for the former president, because he can't function. He can't answer questions. You know, it's not going to, any kind of interview is not going to be good for him.
It's going to be great for Rogan, though.
Yeah.
Where that interview is going to drive huge numbers for him.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to be sharing clips. You know, it's. I mean, we'll carry clips of it, I'm sure, but it'll be a shit show. It'll be an absolute shit show. I hope that Rogan is too baked to function, and I want to know if they're going to put a towel down on Trump's chair. So
An incontinence pad.
I mean, when I talk about the frustration about the US election, right? I wanted to see what the polls were doing. Al Jazeera here, 46 to 48.
Yeah.
To Harris. What?
But remember, the national polls don't matter. The national polls don't matter. This is the error that everyone made in the Clinton election, because everyone was saying Clinton's going to win. Clinton's going to win. Clinton's up by 3%. Clinton's going to win. It was only ever the national vote that they looked at, and Clinton got 2.5% more votes than Trump. So those polls were actually correct, but now they need to break it down much more to those swing states, and the swing states seem a lot closer than that.
And that's exactly what Al Jazeera is saying there at the bottom. National surveys provide a valuable insight into voter sentiment, but the outcome of the Electoral College, determined by state results, ultimately decides the winner, with 7 battleground states expected to be critical, and that's all their focus. It's 7 states. If you live in any other state, fuck you, no one cares. But I'm more commenting on just like people were polled. 46.3% of people polled went, "Yeah, I'm Trump. I'm for Trump." Yeah. What the hell? Yeah, they probably never will, because for them to change something would be a constitutional amendment, which means they probably have to have like a 75% majority to pass it. But they have to go to the popular vote. I mean, basically everyone in California, everyone in New York, everyone, you know, all these places, as you say, their votes don't count. And I don't think it'll ever go through because the Republicans think it'd be bad for them. But I wonder, actually, if you went to the popular vote, how many Republican voters who do live in California who don't vote because there's no point, what the actual number would be. Because if you're in a red state, like it's a 70% red state, you know, just stay in bed. Why bother going into the polls? Mine doesn't count. But if every single vote did really count, I'd be intrigued to see the turnout. I just love that America is seen as this bastion of democracy, you know, always wanting to export democracy to people that don't have it, all of that sort of stuff. And then the version of democracy that they use is the worst version that anybody coming out of a peyote hangover could come out with. Like, it's just mental. Like, why? Just one person, one vote. Do a popular vote. Just rip the Band-Aid and do it. But again, we're coming at this from a position of rationality and trying to solve a problem. This is people have so many vested interests in how corrupted their system is. It is broken. Burn it all down. Start again. Try and stay within your own borders when you do it.
Yeah. All right. There's a bunch of chats and stuff in there. Let's get to them now. And then we want to go on to the continuing story of a man named Andrew Bailey, who I called Richard Bailey today on Twitter.
Andrew Bailey's best week.
Best week ever. Well, at least we all know his name. I didn't know who he was before this week. So, you know, what do they say? Any publicity is good publicity? Don't think so, mate. Don't think so at
I
all.
thought it was a Timu Nigel Farage.
He very much looks like Nigel Farage. Mr. Arvids, guess who's back? Back again. Obama's back. Tell a friend. Very good. Very good. Very clever. Campbell for $20. Thank you for the super chat. Great turnout at Altius Square for the protest. Clearly more work to do, though, as Brooke Van Velden spoke in Parliament today, blaming all the anti-worker actions on the previous government and vaccine mandates. Oh, perfect. There you go, because that's what you do. I've had a bunch of people, in fact, Paul, the other one, Barlow, sent me some photos from Auckland and Chewy. I didn't get there because I had the printer issues today. He sent me from Dunedin, had some sent in from Christchurch. We'll show those when we actually go over the story as well. It's in the ballot. Can we please get a Nikki Nobo and Ohario copy? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Brian says, Obama's getting better with age. Wicked humour. I mean, Obama has done some terrible things, like all American presidents has, but Obama compared to Trump, I know what I would vote for.
The press dinners? Oh, he's funny. Yeah. He is very funny.
Yeah. Free sold late fees because I'm busy trolling Trumpers. Obama's speech rocked. Trump is getting more deranged and desperate, but so is his cult.
And that's the
Rogan
danger.
says more campaigning with Eminem, less with Liz Cheney. Yeah, yep. I'm down. I'm down. You know the Liz Cheney thing. So here's the gist of this. People who don't know, Liz Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris, and so did Dick Cheney. And the best response to that was Jon Stewart, who did a funny set where he looked into the camera and so he spoke to the Don Cheney endorsement and just went, fuck you. Because it's like, we don't, the best thing they should have done was go, I appreciate the endorsement. Dick Cheney has done some terrible things in his day. But doesn't this just show you the sake of where we're at right now, the state of the affairs right now, that a man who is absolutely Republican to the core, who many of us on the left thought some terrible things for the Republicans, even won't vote for this man, rather than just sort of the open arm welcome. They should have used it and been a bit more. We appreciate their endorsement, but we think very differently from these people.
Fuck off.
Yeah, but that says more about Trump than it does about me. And Frosty, $50, Frosty. Wow, there you go. There are several parallels one could make between Caesar and Trump. Rome was killed by barbarians, perhaps parallels from those from January 6. Also, Trump has been trying to get onto Rogan for years. Rogan kept denying him. Weird how now he accepts him. I mean, there's that thing in New Zealand. It's more about mainstream media. I don't think we would adhere to it in the kind of independent area. Whereas come election time, if you're working for a radio station or a television station, you do have to actually be careful, making sure you're spreading your time around. Like you can't just get on national. If you're working for, like I work for ZB, right? You couldn't just get on all the national people and no one else. You actually had to make an effort to share it around. It'd be nice if Rogan's going to do that, if he did do Kamala as well. All right, I'm ready to move on. Is there anything else you want to check box first of all, Chewy? Or are we good?
No, let's moving on. Moving on.
All right. I put this tweet out today, made a bit of a fool of myself by calling him Richard Bailey, but this is the tweet I put out today. Interesting language used by Andrew Bailey. I was certainly not drunk. And I just thought, I was certainly not drunk. It's very interesting. That implies to me you were drinking. So my tweet says, so how much did you drink? The statement implies you weren't drunk, but not that you weren't drinking. Were you tipsy? Were you happy? Did you have a buzz on? What exactly were you, if not drunk? Now, Chewy, what I was unaware of is Mr. Bailey had to go back into Parliament, I think late last night, which is why I missed it, and retract a previous statement because he was drinking. So the statement that he says, I definitely was not drunk. Okay, but he was drinking. And like we said last night, not that we saw or know, but the idea of someone coming back 2 times trying to get someone to come out drinking sounds like your pissed flatmate who's just trying to force you to come down. Come on. And Lee comes, oh, come. It sounds pissed. The actions do, although we weren't there and didn't see it. So let's have a look at how the story has evolved today.
The political hangover that goes on and on and on. National's front bench forced to the back row today to seek clarity from their minister who...
Yeah, this is really embarrassing because National front bench didn't know what the story was, and at least 2 times during the session they had to, Chris Bishop AC had to get up out of his seat and go and check if what they were saying in the front row was accurate or not. Pretty embarrassing, especially when we always hear about prime ministers having a no surprises policy. They were getting surprises in the chamber from just a few rows behind them.
misbehaved at a winery.
If someone declines an offer of an alcoholic drink, is it acceptable for a government minister to return to their worksite 2 further times to harass them into changing their mind?
As I said to the member yesterday, and as I say again today, there is nothing that is acceptable about that behaviour.
Andrew Bailey admits he called a Blenheim winery worker a loser, but denies he told him to F off. The worker thought Bailey had been drinking. Yesterday, the minister told the House that wasn't the case, but at 10 p.m. last night, made this explanation.
For the avoidance of any doubt, after the incident and at the end of the day, I had a small wine tasting.
A small wine tasting raising...
So he has said after the incident. That's what that claim is. The claim gets a bit muddier through the day, though.
Big questions today.
When asked in Parliament whether he had been drinking, he lied about it. Came down in the darkness of night to correct that answer when no one was watching.
Was he misleading the public during the day?
No, not at all. He's just making...
Yes. No, sorry, Christopher. Like, sometimes our bias shows through and we're a bit unfair to you, but the answer to this one is yes, because he had to change his answer. If you don't say yes, you look a fool.
Answer when no one was watching.
Was he misleading the public during the day?
No, not at all. He's just making sure, out of an abundance of caution, that he's being very clear for the avoidance of any doubt.
The question is when exactly Bailey began drinking.
Yeah.
Had he had any alcohol before he talked with the worker on the 3rd of October, first, second, third or subsequent time?
I had not had any alcohol that day prior to the incident with the individual concerned.
Okay, that's a little bit unclear. The incident is a singular event. Then you came back. So the incident would be the singular event. So see there, he's still not kind of nailing it down as clearly as we'd like.
Concerned.
The second interaction, he talked about going for a drink and inviting the complainant to come with him for that. He admits that he had alcohol after the interaction with the individual.
Labor says that's a contradiction.
So we had the Prime Minister saying that Andrew Bailey was drinking between his interactions with the worker, and Andrew Bailey saying that never happened.
You invited him to the cellar door for a drink and he said no.
Yeah, that's correct. But
you
I
were
had
drinking
not,
there?
No, I wasn't drinking. I had not had a drink prior to those interactions with the individual.
Chris Bishop was forced not once but twice to check with Bailey that National had its story straight. The whole House chaotic.
Yikes.
What he got here is a fishing expedition at a great cost to the members and the ministers.
I'm sorry, if anyone knows the history of Winston Peters, he should never use a fishing expedition as an example in the House after how he has held up New Zealand a couple of times by going fishing rather than talking to potential colleagues and coalition partners.
At a great cost to the members and the minister's privacy.
This is not a court. This is not a court. And this is not there is not a prosecution here.
The court of public opinion having its say.
Not too flash as a politician.
I think it's a storm in a teacup.
Well, I don't think it was very good for an MP. It was a bit arrogant.
Ridiculous that he did that.
Why should Andrew Bailey still hold on to his portfolio?
He's a hard-working minister doing a very good job.
Frankly, Andrew Bailey shouldn't still be a minister. His behaviour is totally unacceptable.
Unacceptable behaviour under the spotlight.
And you've learned more.
Now, listen, we don't normally stick with the commentary after by the journalists, but Mikey here has more about the actual complainant, so we'll have a listen to that as well.
Details about the worker, Mikey. What can you tell us?
Well, that's right. One News reached out to the worker at the centre of all of this, and through a support person, we were told that they are unable to do any media interviews, but that understandably they are very upset and very devastated by what has taken place. One News has also seen the full letter of complaint, the unredacted version, in which the worker states that he is a former member of the New Zealand Defence Force, and in the letter of complaint he says, and I quote, "I did not dedicate 5 years of my life to the NZDF only to be belittled by an ambassador of the very government I served." He goes on to say that I have been part of the repatriation of fallen soldiers being brought back from South Korea. I have been a part of and led cultural ceremonies for the royal family's visits to New Zealand and other dignitaries, all of which require a form of etiquette severely lacking in Andrew Bailey. Now, for Christopher Luxon, all of this is simply a distraction from what the government would rather be talking about. This is the fourth day now that the Prime Minister in particular has had to front on questions due to one of his ministers' behaviour. And quite frankly, what we saw taking place in the House there was nothing short of messy. All of those questions should have been sorted out and between the National Party before they even got to question time. They should have had that story down pat by the time they walked in to the House. Now look, tomorrow Andrew Bailey and both the Prime Minister will be hoping they have put this issue to bed and that they're not having to answer any more questions on this very messy issue.
Kia ora,
There you go. So, yeah, people in the chat saying this just gets worse. I mean, it does because they're letting it. I mean, remember Luxon, we played the audio last night. You know, he should be talking about Michael Woodhouse and other Labour Party ministers. He should have been gone tonight. Like, this wouldn't have been messy like this if Luxon had have abided by his own standards that he was holding Labour to, Chewy.
Again, this was Luxon's opportunity to look at what he had in front of him and what political capital he had to spend. Now, he's been terrible at recognizing what political capital is. He wants to position himself as a strong and decisive leader that's in control of his team in ways that Labour never were. Here was his chance to show that decisiveness and cut loose a fucking albatross around his neck for 4 days. I think if anyone... Like, as soon as the story came out that it was at a winery and the minister was saying that he wasn't drinking, I think any right-thinking person would go bullshit to that. You know, everything about it is bizarre. Like people in the chat have said, so he said those things and he did those things when he hadn't had a single drink. So there isn't even that excuse. And then he's gone back. He hasn't read the room. And that's completely leaving aside the other issues with Bailey that we've talked about. There's massive conflict of interest to the tune of more than 90 grand worth of shares in a company that bids for government contracts. I love it when Luxon comes out and says, look, he's a very hard-working minister. How? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence that we have seen that this guy is a hard-working minister? Because here we have him being a fucking asshole to a worker at a winery. Like, this is just beyond nonsense. And yes, people are going, you know, that woman in the it's a storm in a teacup. Like, it is one of those things where it's the principle of the thing, and it's less about the actual incident and more about how it's being reacted to by the leader of the party that Bailey is part of and the leader of the government that is supposed to be leading this country.
I wonder how because Melissa Lee gone by lunchtime, but then Costello and Nicole McKee, who have, you know, that they look at if I'm being generous, to be in a conflict of interest, he won't touch them. And he won't touch them because obviously that would upset the apple cart for his coalition partner leaders, his co-leaders. So what?
There's a fig leaf that they're different parties. They're not his mob, so he can't do anything about it.
So, but what does he do here? Because if he reacted quickly here, wouldn't everyone start going, "What about McKee? What about Costello?" You know, like is he hamstrung? And I also wanted to show you, because you mentioned this 2 or 3 times, just so people know what we're talking about. Election 2023, National MP did not declare shareholding to Parliament in the wake of Michael Wood's scandal. National MP Andrew Bailey did not declare to Parliament his shareholdings in a company, risking allegations of hypocrisy, as Bailey was one of the fiercest critics of former Labour Minister Michael Wood, who resigned over the same offence, but not quite the same, because only about 1/6 the value. Newsroom Pro has reported Bailey owns shares worth about 86,000 Australian dollars, 91,600 New Zealand, in SiteSoft International Limited, a software company that contracts to government agencies. The shares are held in Bailey's family trust, the Paparangi Trust, which acquired them in 2021. So you've said that a couple of times. I think it's always good to put out there what exactly it is, so people don't go,
pulling it
I
out
don't know
of
if I
my
can
arse.
believe it. So there it is. There it is, Chewy.
But you've got that aspect there as well, like, and this is what we've talked about with Luxon, of like, if you're a person of integrity, you hold yourself to the same standards that you hold everyone to.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why we played those clips of Luxon talking about Michael Woodhouse. Here we have one of the most vocal critics of Michael Woodhouse doing the same thing and not holding himself to the same standard. And it is just hypocrisy. Everything about this is wrong. Everything about this minister. Where is his value? Like it's not there. This is the minister for small business. What guys are really feeling the crunch in this country at the moment is the small business holders.
Yeah.
And the person that should be looking out for those guys is swatting around wineries, doing this mean girl shit to workers. It's ridiculous. And Luxon can't identify, like, wherever you work. I work in a shop. If I called a customer a loser and did this, I'd be gone for gross misconduct by the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know? But think about your workplace. If you did that, you said that to a client or a co-worker, you'd be gone. You'd be written up immediately. Like, but here we have the boss covering from this fucking weak link, and it makes him look weak. He hasn't worked that out yet, though.
I think in politics, that's the thing, isn't it? For some of them, they think, oh, if I don't have, like, if my managers are underperforming, then that's a reflection on me. You know, if my ministers are doing things that are untoward or that are outside the cabinet manual, then that reflects on me as a leadership. So I won't censure them, because if I do, then it'll be, well, you know, what's your problem with your selection process? Again, National Party, should we mention Uffindale's name again, your selection process and the people you've got working around you. So I wonder if it's more about that. All right. There's a couple of chats in there, I think, which I thought we should mention. There we go. Andrew Bailey is National's Darlene Tana. So they're going to walker jump him? They're going to get rid of him? Campbell says, we did talk about this government imploding. Looks like phase 1 is a go. And then Mr. Ovid says, it's the Perston. Speaking of Casello, Winnie is projecting on Labour. Now, yeah, I saw that tonight as well. Winston Peters is throwing shade at Aisha Verrill that she has someone, a family member, writing policies around the smoking issue. And the response has been, yeah, we work in public service. Everyone's got relatives somewhere in the public service. You know, most MPs, if that's where you are, then chances are you're going to know someone, have a family member somewhere in politics. And it appears to be a diversionary tactic. The shell game, a la Winston Peters. Alrighty. Let's have a look at this, because we are going to feature some frottage from the working group as a part of this story as well. Is that how you say it? Frottage? F-O-O-T-A-G-E, frottage? I believe that's the way you say it.
Oh,
I think so.
Okay.
So let's go to the 3 news story about the hui today, and let's see what was reported and what went on around the country.
No mai haere mai. Welcome to 3 News. Fight back together. That was the banner under which thousands of union members gathered in centres across the country today to oppose what they described as the government's attacks on workers' rights. The Workplace Relations Minister responded by saying the government is delivering for all workers, including the more than 85% who are not union members. Zane Small has the developments.
Under the Beehive, under the Sky Tower in central Hamilton and New Plymouth, union members gathered in their thousands today.
Union! Union!
From nurses,
we all feel the impact of inflation, but wages must rise above it.
to supermarket workers in their Woolies green. Unions came together to voice their grievances.
The government's priorities are not with the workers. Hard-working New Zealanders that are facing a cost of living crisis, that are struggling at the moment, they're getting little or no support from this government.
There was dancing. There was singing. And of course, there were placards.
We are the working class! We are the working class!
The unions are pushing back against the government's removal of fair pay agreements, the reintroduction of 90-day trials for employees, and planned reforms of contracting law.
We've got, we're going to link this in together because they do talk about Uber in this story. And there was quite a good interaction of the working group about Uber and about contractors versus workers and about what the legislation is. Max Harris actually unpacks it quite well. So we don't need to get too much into what the actual legislation is about. We're going to get to that. This is really just about the workers who are out today.
In August, 4 Uber drivers celebrated a legal victory when the courts determined they'd been misclassified as contractors rather than employees. The following month, Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden said the current process for workers challenging their employment status through the courts can be costly for businesses.
No!
We're going to pause on that. Costly for businesses, like fuck the workers. Like this is could be. It's not going to be costly at all for the workers who are made contractors and get no benefits. It's not costly for them, but it's costly for the businesses. You know, it's like what? What?
Yeah, fucking over workers
Yeah, now-
should be expensive.
Yeah, yeah, fair.
Announced plans to clarify contracting law.
Brooke Van Velden's cut and paste contractors law reform bill appears to have been written largely by Uber lobbyists.
As part of the government, I have the mandate to make sure that we are backing business so that business has confidence to go on and employ more people with better jobs.
Union leaders feel the pendulum.
This world of Narnia that these people think that, you know, it's basically another version of trickle-down economics. You know, if we treat those at the top really good, we give them everything they want, and we help them and enable their business to grow, then it will trickle down to better paid and more. The research doesn't show that. And again, I'm projecting here, but I think it's Craig Rennie in the clip we're about to see talks about how productivity has gone up in New Zealand over the time, but not the wages to match it. In other words, it's the people at the top who are making more profit now because the productivity has increased and wages haven't kept up with the increase in productivity. So the businesses are making more money, the workers aren't. That's the problem they're facing at the moment. Do you want to say anything before we put play there, Chewy?
Why is Brooke carrying water for an international company? This is happening in pretty much most locations that Uber operates on.
Yeah.
Because they class their drivers as contractors. They don't have to do a whole bunch of shit. They don't have to look after them at all. But we should not be carrying water for these sort of companies. And if this is the talking point that people are happy to go, if you're happy to pay more for it than your Uber Eats, then that's what's going to happen. Cool. If it means the person that brings my Uber Eats has fair pay and conditions, that is a price of doing business. Like valuing your Uber Eats order over the human that goes and gets it for you so you don't leave your house. That says more about your priorities than anything.
The other thing about Uber Eats is the businesses that are on Uber Eats, not the person that brings it to you, maybe they should check themselves as well before they wreck themselves. I'm sure everyone's seen this when you're ordering something on Uber Eats, and it's strangely more expensive than if you ordered it in the shop by itself. And that's because Uber clips the ticket both ways, right? So they're making money off both the delivery driver and money off the shop. Now, my kids like McDonald's. I don't really do McDonald's anymore, but I know that McDonald's, well, certainly a year ago when I used it, is far more expensive through Uber Eats, and then you pay for the delivery as well. So this is, I don't know. I know maybe it's wrong talking about morals in business, but it seems to be such a bigger conversation than just, treat them well, treat them well. It's like, actually, why are you guys participating? There's a product in New Zealand, I think, called Deliver Easy, certainly in Dunedin. Is that nationwide? Do you know Deliver Easy?
Yeah, it is.
They don't seem to have the same sort of model, and that's based in New Zealand business, I believe. Yet Uber Eats is getting all the uptick because of their technology. They're basically a technology company that's worked how to deliver food rather than a food delivery company. And it seems rotten from the head down. It really does.
I have said to several local eateries that advertise Uber Eats that the delivery aspect to them is so important. Do your own delivery driver.
Yeah.
Every time I've looked at the Uber app and then looked online, it's exactly as you said. It's more expensive. Why order through them? It makes no sense. I mean, Dunedin's a small place. It's easy to go get it. Auckland might be a whole different story. But there are alternatives out there that will keep the money here in New Zealand and pay their workers better than fucking Uber.
Yeah. All right. Now that we've just put in the idea in people's head about fucking Uber, let's keep going.
Has swung too far, though, in favour of employers.
They've definitely got the balance wrong, and that's our real concern.
The Minister responded with her own message to the Council of Trade Unions.
I do think it's important for us to listen to a range of perspectives. The CTU doesn't represent all workers.
But the unions say there's strength in standing together, a tradition that keeps us...
Sorry, I'm trying to pause that. Brooke Van Velden does something really interesting. It's important that we listen to a range of voices. Okay, Brooke, how much are you listening to the CTU or to E2? Because I would think, Chewy, that what she's saying is the people out there should listen to a range of voices while I get my talking points from Uber. How often has she actually, she herself, done that thing that she's telling others to do and got a variety of opinions? How often is CTU been in her office? Because what she's telling us is don't just listen to the CTU. Okay, sure, fine. Don't just listen to the lobbyists. It goes both ways, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, listen to a range of opinions.
Yeah.
There's one range of opinions standing outside Parliament today.
Yeah.
Did you speak to them? Did you listen to them? Or are you taking meetings from Uber? You say that the unions don't represent all workers. That is correct. How do you gauge the other workers that aren't represented that are apparently okay with being scammed by companies like Uber?
Yeah.
Tell me how that works.
All right, we'll keep going on this. I'm going to text someone and ask them a question as well.
But the unions say there's strength in standing together, a tradition that keeps a song written 100 years ago relevant to this day.
But the union makes us strong.
Does that get your blood boiling, Chewy, hearing that song? Hey,
love it.
Union makes us strong. Thoughts, sir? Let's hear you.
This is a real moment for the unions. Like, I haven't seen them do something like this, at least in recent memory. You see individual unions doing things, absolutely, especially like the nurses union, that sort of thing. They've been really vocal for obvious fucking reasons. But this is the first time that I've seen something like this, a nationwide series of actions that involved all of the unions.
Yeah.
Now, I can speak here in Timaru, I probably gauged that crowd about 500 or 600 people in the middle of a workday in the middle of the week. And I saw a lot of...
Do you mean...
Dunedin. I saw a lot of comments online of people going, if this was the weekend, I would have been down there with them.
Yeah.
And these are non-union members. people that just see, like, a lot of this was backing the hospital and against privatization and about workers' rights and against the attack on the foundational aspect of Te Tiriti and all of that sort of thing. I've seen people going, I support all of this sort of stuff. I'm not a union member. I would have been there though. And I've seen a lot of people criticizing exactly what I just mentioned, that it wasn't a single issue. It was a whole bunch of them, like it was a negative.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I've seen the unions do something like this. They pulled it together in the space of a couple of weeks. They did it in the middle of a workday, in the middle of the week. And this is the sort of turnout that they were capable of delivering.
Yep. And this is Christchurch.
I'd be worried.
There's Christchurch there as well.
Yeah, I'd be worried if I was Brooke.
Really? Because I couldn't make it. I had a delivery coming that I couldn't move, unfortunately. Do you think? Did the government take the 35,000 message about the hospital to heart? If they did, is this going to drive it, or do we need more and more and more? Which I think they'll get. It will grow.
I kind of see this,
Auckland, by the way,
as a bit of a warning shot. So
Right.
Dunedin's thing was very much regional, and it was on the weekend. And then the next thing that you have in the space of a labour action is a stop work meeting, which you could really count this as I said, it had the structure of a meeting, of a union meeting. The thing that happens after a stop work meeting doesn't go well and you don't get your conditions met is a strike. And it feels to me that if the unions are moving as one at this point and they call a strike,
yeah,
it's going to be noticeable. And we haven't had a general strike since 1979.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll get on to some conversations around unions and stuff from the working group last night, but before we do that, apparently Wellington played Chapel Roan Hot to Go as a protest song. Can we now add this to all our protest playlists? We need some fresh tunes. Yep, I've discovered Chapel Roan through my children, and she plays everywhere in my house now. Quite like her, actually.
Yeah, we do need more bangers.
Yeah. Yeah, those 60s anthems are great, but it's time to elevate. Kiwi Bird says, NAC delivering bad outcomes for all workers. Aaron says, are you happy to pay more when your Uber Eats? Because that's what would happen. That is what would happen. I suppose that makes sense. Yeah, I'm okay with paying more to look after people properly in general. I'm okay to pay, I'm okay to pay the driver more. I don't want to pay the restaurant more. That's where I fall over with Uber Eats. I think I want to live in a world where I'm as generous as possible. I'll tell you about my life, right? I'm not saying this to get any kind of credit back or anything, but we have a supermarket in our neighborhood and there's often people sitting outside. I've made the decision that if they're ever there and I'm walking past and I've got change, I'm going to give it to them. Now, this has controversies in some circles. I've heard from people about, but I'll just go spend it on alcohol and dinner. And I was like, I'm just going to choose to live generously. Now, I have a little rule for myself. I don't park on that side of the supermarket on purpose to do that. And I'll only give them something if I've got change, right? And it's just that's the way I do it. Went out for dinner on Saturday night, I think. Probably Saturday night. Lovely restaurant. Actually above, is it Bacchus? In the Octagon, the bar right on the corner. And upstairs, it's got like a fine dining restaurant. It was amazing. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, Bacchus.
Yeah, I'd never been up there. Didn't know that there was that restaurant upstairs. We walked up there. I was dressed like this, and they're all basically shirts and ties. And I was like, I don't care. My money's the same.
It's no one cares.
Yeah.
You could be in a dressing gown.
And the server was amazing, so I tipped her $20 because she was amazing. It's like I try and live a life that if it's a very small amount of something nice can make someone's day. If anyone's ever heard me talking to people on the phone that are at a call center, I always go, like, let's say I'm in the call center and you're answering the phone, Chewy, and you're going to go, hi, Chewy here. So I've called up and you answer the phone.
Hi there, Pat.
Okay. I always go, hey, how you doing? How's your day? Da-da-da-da-da, little bits. along the way, little bits of sunshine along the way. And when it comes back to Uber, I'd much rather pay. You get delivery fees like $3.99. I'd much rather pay $5, $6, $7 to a delivery driver and get the food for the right price, than a pittance to the delivery driver that gets cut by Uber, and then more for the product because that's getting clipped by Uber as well. It doesn't feel right to me. It just doesn't feel right.
I mean, there's a whole lot of aspects around. Like, I mean, we're really fucking jumping on Uber at this point. But I noticed one of Wellington's biggest taxi companies went into receivership the other day. Now, part of me is like, yeah, okay, well, you probably should have read the writing on the wall and saw what was making Uber attractive. And yes, it was an artificial dropping of the price because they did the absolute classic thing of we're going to put in a service, we're going to make it cheaper than the traditional taxi, we're going to make it easier to use. Once we've driven the taxis out of business, well, look at that, where we're putting our prices up.
Yeah.
And in this case, we're gonna blame the drivers, you know, and that sort of thing. So we lose out in that case, you know. And the blame isn't all Uber's. Traditional industries need to look at what threats are out there. Like I haven't used a taxi for a long, long time, but the last time I did, and I went, no, I don't want to use Uber. I'm going to get a normal cab. Just the process of getting a normal cab was so frustrating because they had a shitty app and I didn't want to call them. So they made it difficult for me to access that service. So the lesson there is, if you're a legacy business and some disruptor is coming in, try and pinch as much from the disruptor as possible and try and take that away from them. If we're just left with Ubers and rideshare organizations instead of taxis, it's worse. It's worse for a whole bunch of people that have less choice than you as well. Do you think Uber gives a shit about being, working with ACC for mobility customers? Can you hire an Uber for a wheelchair? Probably not.
Don't think so.
But taxi companies do.
Yeah.
Normal people might fully able people may never have to think about that. Isn't that cool? That's what we call privilege. But yeah, Uber does not care if you have a wheelchair. You can just deal with it yourself.
You're right though about the responsibility the incumbent has. You know, we always talk about, like, my grandparents had a safe instead of a fridge. It was like a safe. It was thick and it kept cool, and they'd get a big block of ice put into it at the start of each week, and the ice would keep it cool. That was their refrigerator. So there was a man who sold ice. What did he do when refrigerators became in every house? Well, he adapted or he disappeared. You know, the classic one is Kodak. What did Kodak do when digital cameras came around? Kodak was all about film. Well, they adapted or they disappeared. So there is a part of it. I'm with you, Chewy. But like, just speaking of taxis versus Ubers, you know, the taxi driver lives down the road from you. The Uber driver lives down the road from you. The taxi company employs the receptionist in the base in the town you live in and pays for the cars that are in the local area and they get bought from the local area, and it's all localized. Whereas Uber is like, some's localized, local restaurant, local driver, and then off to a multinational, international conglomerate based probably out of some tax haven in Barbados. So, you know, I taxi when I can. That was a very long segue from a person who sent through a text, by the way. I'm sorry about that.
That was a tangent and a half.
Yeah. Anna says, having trouble joining Patreon. Won't let me pay at the end. Here you go. Have $5. Thank you, Anna. I don't know what's going on there, but thank you for persisting. Mr. Arvid's same tune as TP, Māori Party, Te Pāti Māori, doesn't represent all Māori. It's disgusting. I'm minding that's supposed to be disgusting. Yeah, we'll go with disgusting.
No, there isn't an organisation out there that represents all people.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's such a nothing statement from Broke. Nobody's expecting the unions to speak for all unions, unless, of course, you are arguing for mandatory union membership, which I'm pretty sure you aren't.
Well, now says we had 7 buses go to Aotea, but we only had 20% of our workforce able to attend. We work with medical equipment, I guess. We went for them also. Very cool. A couple more. Brian says, waterfront strikes, don't forget the scabs.
Now, I mean, I've spoken a couple of times now about a general strike. A lot of people mentioning the laws around striking now. You would be able to do that because legally the only way you can strike as part of a contract negotiation. This is the sort of thing is like there's been so much union busting done in this country, and you can compare it to Australia where the unions are far stronger, and as a fact, their pay and conditions, the penalty rates and stuff like that are much higher because they haven't cracked down on their unions as much as they did here in New Zealand.
And finally, Wombat Holio. I'd love to chat sometime about the gig work / contractor space that I think the union has gotten wrong. I'm usually very pro-union, but not in this case. Thank you for your super chat, Wombat Holio. I am Corn Holio.
I'd kind of like to echo that as well. Because
on my bunghole. Sorry.
I am obviously very, very pro-union, but I have had nothing but trouble trying to join one.
Right.
And I think this might be the case, right? The unions are set up to represent entire industries and entire workforces and that sort of thing. Factories and, fast food workers and nurses, all of the monolithic groups. Me as a general retail worker in a reasonably small workplace as part of a much bigger company, it's actually been really hard to join in a union. So I can think about that. Like, I had to meet all of these conditions, talk to people, and then I just got forgotten. And it's one of those things. It's like I would just like to join a union, not expecting much, but again, the idea of solidarity is really important to me. I can see that workers' conditions and that is under attack. I want to help with that. Help me help you, unions.
What's it? I do it for the money. What's that thing? Help me help you. Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, this is
Bill says, yeah, retail workers union. Yep, absolutely. Reached out a couple of times, fizzled both times because there's 7 people at my workplace. Don't really care.
This has been the longest segue to continue on to the same story. But this we're gonna have a look at a couple of clips from working group last night, and the reason these kind of tie in is they are talking about, this is from last night's show, so they're talking about the union marches, Hui's today, and they got into a conversation about unions in general. Mr. Grant, Damien Grant, just talking about what good a union. This is just 60 seconds.
If let's say the Solomon Islands or Papua New Guinea, let's say Solomon Islands, let's say
they always use such stupid way out there examples as well, eh?
Why are we talking about the Solomon Islands?
Well, listen, you'll get there.
Their workforce.
Yes.
Let's say that they create a capital gains tax and they increased all of the health and safety laws. If the Solomon Islands did that, would they become as wealthy as New Zealand?
They would have workers who would go home at night, away from work, safe and see their families. They would have terms and conditions.
So this is the problem with the libertarian. You know how we talk about David Seymour only sees issues of race? Libertarians only see issues of finance. So in other words, the way they see success is if they unionize in the Solomon Islands of all places, would they be as wealthy as New Zealand? So they're not looking for the other benefits that unionizing may do or a capital gains tax may do. They're just looking at, would that make them as rich as us? It's only about the money, nothing else, just the money.
They weren't being exploited.
That was not my question.
So the question is, would they be better off? They'd all be, or each individual worker would be better off because they would have terms and conditions that would make sure they weren't being exploited, that they weren't dying at work, that their children had better opportunities than them. Right? You talk about productivity. Since 1991 in this country.
Well, the answer to the question, would they be as wealthy as New Zealand, is no. But that's not the only question. Was would they be better off? This is in America the stupid thing. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Well, 4 years ago in America, millions of people were dying from COVID. So in the health system, most of you are better in America than you were today. It's not a binary answer, being better off.
Country, productivity, capital, the amount of the economy going to capital to profits
Yes.
has risen year on year on year.
Yes.
The amount going to labour has risen much, much less. So the productivity of that workforce is still going up, but the returns to that productivity are going to capital, not to workers. And 1991 is an important year because the Employment Contracts Act, and it was the doing of the unions at that point in time.
There you go. We're not doing a follow-up question, Bomber. We love you, but we're not doing the follow-up question. What we're going to do is go to the next part of the conversation, where they are talking about what a contractor is, what a worker is, and they bring in the example of Uber as well. And you'll see it. But the thing that fascinates me about Damien Grant and his perspective as a libertarian is it's only about the money, right? It's only about the numbers. And it's not about, benefits. It's not about safer. It's only about the finances and nothing else. And it's also this Shangri-La fake world where you can just walk out of one job if you're unhappy and walk into another one of better pay. Oh, just leave it and go get a better job. Leave it and go get a better job. He never says, well, you can just leave that job and go on a benefit, because that would actually be the case for many people. So being stuck in a cycle of being poorly paid and having bad working environment is not a choice between this one and the gold mine across the road or the business, which gives me a better option. So for some people, for probably lots, if not most people, it's the choice between this job where I'm not that happy and it's not the best situation in the world, or the benefit. And so they stay and they get taken advantage of.
And this is actually not what the contractor law is about. The contractor law is about allowing
a pointless redesignation of A to B.
Let me finish. The current law says if you stipulate in your contract, or you're an employer, you stipulate that someone is a contractor, the court can look behind it if it's a sham. And they can say, actually, if you look at all the aspects of your work, you're a worker.
Yeah.
What this law is doing is it's enabling those sham contracts, and that boosts employer power, because it says when the employer stipulates that in the contract, what the employer says goes. That's very damaging for the imbalance of power that already exists between employers and employees.
So the reason people are saying Brooke Van Veldum is taking her talking points from Uber is the court last year could look at how these guys were driving for Uber and go, no. You're an employee. It's obvious you're an employee. What this government's trying to do is to get it so that law no longer exists. So courts won't be able to make that determination. So Uber will be able to go, well, I don't care if you operate like an employee and you do 99.9999% of all the things that you do an employee does. You're a contractor and there'll be no recourse. That to me is quite scary. And that's the law that they're talking about changing.
That's what this is really about.
Because without people like you and Mr. Rennie, the poor worker, they would just be so exploited. It's a paternalistic nonsense. Those people out there driving Ubers or doing whatever the designation is, they are making their own economic decisions out in the real world.
This is absolute nonsense. This really is absolute arrogance. Even by your standards, Damien, this is absolute arrogance. You don't get paid what you're worth.
Yes,
right?
you do. Absolutely,
you get paid
do.
what your terms and conditions suggest,
that is
which can
not
change
true.
at any point in time. And if you're a contractor and you're reliant upon a monopoly provider of employment, a monopsonist, to use the phrase, then you are going to be reliant upon whatever charity they decide to give you at that point in time.
Why don't you work for McDonald's?
I don't.
Craig, why do you? I mean,
there's such stupid analogies, parallels, things he draws. I just do not get it.
McDonald's have terms and conditions that would, if you work for them, you would consider that exploitation. Why don't you work for McDonald's?
I work for the CTU. This is not a decision between McDonald's and the CTU.
You don't work for McDonald's because you have a choice about where to work.
And the employee...
the employee has a choice about where to work.
There's the Shangri-La. Did you not know, Chewy? There's actually 40 places you could just walk into tomorrow and start a new job. And the employee has the choice. So the libertarian puts it all on the worker as well. You do whatever you want. I can treat you as badly as I want, because if you don't like it, you'll leave. Because there's a million other jobs you can go and get. But that's not the world we live in today. I've been talking lots, Stu. Do you want to say anything before we get going?
I'm baffled. Like, I just don't know how to dissect what ridiculous point David is trying to make.
Yeah.
It is nonsensical.
Well, I think it's going to get better.
I'm stunned. I shouldn't be, but I'm stunned. This is phenomenal, even for him.
Well, you might want to get yourself your dog as a like comfort animal when we get to the end of this.
But you've used the good word there. It's employee. It's not contractor.
Yeah.
Because they're an employee. They are directed.
Actually, they're a person.
They're directed in their work.
Yeah.
They are told what to do. They are given a job.
See,
they are an employee, and all the law does is it allows you, a judge, to say, actually, this is a legal fiction. And as a consequence, I'm going to tell the truth.
And how is that? How is any of this making the boat go faster in terms of improving productivity? It doesn't. It does nothing.
All that happens is
we are arguing about how many angels can dance at the head of a pin.
All that happens right now is Uber makes a giant profit, right? It uses inter-party transactions to reduce that profit, so it doesn't even turn up in the tax books. All we're doing is making a third party better off, rather than the actual workers.
Have you used Uber?
Of course I've used Uber.
It's a pretty good service, isn't it?
Yes, but
I
want the workers in there.
It almost feels like him saying, like if it was 1780, you know, do you have people picking cotton? It's a pretty good service, isn't it? It's pretty effective, pretty cheap, you know. Yeah, and look, it works so well. The idea that because it's being used, therefore that means it's the best system they've got. It's just crazy. This has got about 30 seconds to go.
It's a pretty good service, isn't it?
Yes, but I want the workers in there to have great terms and conditions as well. This is an absolutely silly argument that we shouldn't use a service because for some workers it doesn't work. We should be making sure that the employees in that firm, as found by the court, are given the terms and conditions.
You're sea lining, and no one likes sea lining.
Do the people who drive for Uber, do they have a choice, or are they indentured labour?
Of course they have a choice.
Right, that's it. Discussion ended. They have a choice.
If people are exploited will still choose that exploitation.
But they have a choice. They have a choice, and you don't seem to understand that.
There you go. So that's what I'm saying. He just doesn't get it. They have a choice. I mean, it's like debate school, yeah? Yeah, they have a choice. They could either work for Uber or go on a benefit. You know, assuming that they don't just walk into another job. Yeah. They have a choice. But working for Uber, and, you know, they have a choice. They live in Auckland and their rent's $750 a week and they've got kids and, you know, they couldn't survive on a benefit, but they still have a choice. He just seems to think, as I said, you walk out of this job and across the road, look, there's a job that pays twice as much and you can definitely walk into that job. It's just this fantasy world he lives in.
Yeah, I'd like to see him talk to an Uber driver. Like a lot of Uber drivers are new immigrants to this country. And we know that things are not easy when you're a new immigrant. Language skills are maybe not up to snuff to work. Like, you're not going to get an office job, are you? One of the benefits for those people that drive Uber is all that they need is a car that meets the requirements to get the right driver's license and that sort of thing. There are so many structural problems with what Damien Grant is talking about there. Yes, they do have a choice. And for many of them, it's have a job with some income or don't.
Yeah.
Everybody isn't equal. Everybody's opportunities aren't equal. And sometimes that choice of have a job or not means you agree to exploitation or danger, because that is a safer bet than the great unknown.
I said I was going to message someone. I texted Craig Rennie in the last break while we were talking. And because, you know, we're talking about Brooke Van Velden, says, you should have a wide range of opinions. And I said, hey, sir, has the CTU ever been in a one-on-one with Brooke Van Velden? He replied, when they took office, one meeting, on the same day they cancelled the fair pay agreement for half an hour. So that's her perspective of getting a broad number of opinions. They met with the CTU for half an hour once, 12 months ago, and then after that meeting they cancelled the fair pay agreements. So it doesn't necessarily look like she's taking on board varying opinions, does it?
Another thing that I'd like to bring up, and House of M has nudged me in this direction here. Uber drivers would give him lip service because if he gives them a low rating, it affects their income.
Sure. Yeah.
So here we go. We talk about choice, right? For any reason, Uber can just remove your access to the Uber app.
Yeah.
And your job evaporates. There's no one you can call. There's no one you can appeal. If it's a mistake, how do you get it fixed?
Yeah.
You have no recourse. And that could be your entire income. Like, say it is an innocent mistake and it gets fixed. 2 weeks without income. Most people, that would fucking wreck you.
Yep.
So where is the power dynamic in that relationship? Especially if these drivers are what Uber says that they are, contractors. There's none. And that is often what libertarians want. They want that gig economy. They want everybody's the master of their own ship. And if something bad happens to you, then you fucking deserved it somehow. Again, it's an absolute fantasy. Libertarians always think they're going to be the Lord and never the serf. And they don't give a single shit about the serfs.
We are coming to the end of the show right now. A few super chats that have come in. Campbell, thank you for the super chat, says, why is a country's performance based on wealth and not worker safety? Damien has gone mad. Yep, that's what we're saying. Wooming, thank you for your super chat. Two times convicted fraudster has conveniently forgotten what Helmut said the other week around wealth being more than money. Neoliberal blinders on again. And Campbell says, why does Damien O'Connor sound like he's talking through a helium balloon? Because he has a pipe
Damien
with
Grant.
helium. Oh yeah, Damien Grant. Pipe with helium rammed up his jacksie, and he sucks it in, and that's why. We wanted that one there. You started off from Sarah. Sarah says, Chewy, what's your view on New Zealand hosting the America's Cup? Did you start that? That's a sports ball question.
It is a sports ball. I've been asked directly what I think about the America's Cup. I would be furious at public money being spent on fucking money boat. These millionaires and massive global companies having a fucking lovely little yacht race. And they always have their hand out for government money and that sort of thing. I do not care for it.
Do you know what my honest answer is? What would it return us? Like, what would it do for us?
Oh, look, I'm down for this, right? Like, you see cities and countries almost bankrupt themselves to crawl over each other for the opportunity to do the Olympics, and they
the Olympics bankrupt. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And think about when they held the America's Cup here, the amount of bitching and fighting about upgrades to Auckland's marina and all of this sort of stuff, and it was going to bring in just huge amounts of money, and it never did. Like, I think the benefits for something of the America's Cup, the benefits to New Zealand are much more nebulous than anything else.
In general, right? In general, if a government can demonstrate, I don't even care who it is. Let's say it was the Rugby World Cup in 2011 or whatever, 2015. If they can demonstrate that $1 billion worth of tax money going into something would return, 1.5 billion in tax, I'm like, cool. One of the reasons that was it Perth pulled out of the Commonwealth Games, and it's now a shadow of its former self over in Scotland, is exactly that. People can't afford, in this economy, you can't afford to do it. So I think if this government was to do something like that, after they've ripped the guts out of all the vulnerable people they can in New Zealand and then held a boat race, yeah, I'd be pretty pissy about that, actually. Because that is
I've been trying to find some of those, those Spanish orcas that have been sinking yachts.
Yeah.
We could import some of them.
Look,
it's a boat race. If you want to race boats, go and race boats. Don't expect some fucking party facilities to be built for you.
Yeah.
You guys are uber wealthy. You're sponsored by some of the most massive multi national companies that can pour money into you. You build a boat that basically melts when it touches water because it goes real quick. Maybe they could front some of the money to build infrastructure to thank us for hosting their money boat race.
Yeah. And well, you know, the other problem though is if this government do it, all the boats would disappear. They wouldn't know where they were. They'd just and they'd be gone. They'd be gone out of all the sheds.
Or
that's
what it agreed to. We're not hosting racing yachts anymore. They have to race 4 rail enabled ferries from Picton to Wellington. And we'll call it New Zealand's Cup.
All right, team. What's tomorrow? Thursday. Sam Seed is going to be coming on at some stage. He's planning to talk to you Friday off. You can come and have a chat as well with Sam if you want, bro. Friday morning at 10 a.m. is the current setup time. I've asked him if he can do it 24 hours early. If he can, then I'll play it in tomorrow night's show. If he can't, it'll probably be a special on Friday night. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, and you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and then also hit the notification bell, because that means if we are on Friday night, which is not a regular night for us yet, see what I did there, Joey? That's like a little tease, yet, then you'll know when we're going live. So if you've subscribed and haven't hit it, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and then you'll know if we're here on Friday night. Yes, Gark from the Majority Report. That is who we are chatting to. I've chatted to Sam before on other podcasts, so I have a few inroads over there. I've asked a few others as well to see if they want to come on before the election, but obviously all of my contacts over there, like David Packman, like the Vanguard boys and stuff, are all pretty busy at the moment, so we'll see what ends up. But Sam said yes, so we'll see what happens with that. So tomorrow night, it's a little bit up in the air. We're not entirely sure what's going to happen yet. We will let you know tomorrow night, if not before, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a war path to run, and linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what you impact. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's Big Hairy News.
All right, team. I'll catch you tomorrow night from 9. That's it for me, at least. Got anything else you want to add?
No, nothing.
Nothing from the Chew Meister. All right, team.
Nothing.
We'll catch you. Dog's already moving. Maybe Dog knows that I'm going to call her in a minute and make her get out of her comfy bed.
Actually, I do have something. Last America's Cup cost Auckland $290 million net negative.
Wow. Very good.
Yep.
Very
Someone
good,
else
not
can
good.
host Money Boat.
All right. Thanks, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 for another edition. Big Hairy News. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.